experience and people that I know personally that died as soldiers. Tell you a little bit of, I have time, or you're in a hurry over here? Huh? You're okay. So stories of people that will make this day meaningful for everybody. So first of all, my name is Sharon Gad. I'm a colonel in the Special Forces of the Israeli Army. I've been serving in the Israeli Army for the last 28 years. And my profession was Special Operations, Infantry. That's what I've been doing since the age of 18. 30 years ago, I established an academy which is called Caliber 3, which today is considered, thank God, to be the biggest and most professional academy for counter-terror in Israel, and maybe people say one of the biggest and most professional in the world. Over there, we have, by the way, 3 bases in Israel. One is in Gush Etzion near Jerusalem, one is in the central part of Israel, and one is in the northern part of Israel. And over there in the academy, we train the Israeli military, mostly the special forces and infantry. We train the Israeli police, the Secret Service, government security, and we also train civilians from Israel and Jews from all over the world, because our mission in life is to make sure that every Jew and friend of Israel that wants to know how to protect himself will have an address to do that. And that's our mission in life. The sentence from the Bible that we took, and it's on the academy, is Vayomer lelamed bnei Yehuda keshet. And that sentence was said by the greatest Jewish warrior in all times, King David. And he said it in a very special occasion. And I'm taking you about 2,700 years ago, when Israel is surrounded by enemies like today. You know, nothing changes. And today it's the Palestinians, the Iranians, the Hezbollah, the Syrians. Then it was the Plishtim. And King David, you know the story of King Saul and King David, the best friend of King Saul's son Jonathan. King David knew that he was blessed by God to be the next king, but King Saul didn't let it happen. And in one of the battles, the last battle that King Saul fought was in a region in Israel called the Gilboa. It's a northern region in Israel. King David then was in Hebron. He was hiding from King Saul. And King Saul went to the Gilboa with his 3 sons to fight the Plishtim. And over there, it was a very hard fight. And at the end of the day, King Saul understood that he's going to die. And he said, the king of Israel cannot fall in the hands of the enemies. And he asked his helper to kill him. The helper said, no way, I cannot kill the king of Israel. So you know what he did? He put his sword on the ground and he pushed himself on it, in order not to fall in the hands of the enemies. And in that battle, Jonathan and 2 other sons of King Saul, they died too. And that was the end of King Saul and his sons. And one of the people that was, one of the warriors that was there, he went to Hebron, which is about, those days it was a 5-day march to Hebron. and he went to find King David to tell him what happened. And King David was listening. He told him the story, and he understood two things. The first thing is that from now on, he's the king of Israel, the formal king of Israel. And the second thing, if he's the king of Israel, he has a responsibility for Israel, and he has a responsibility to protect Israel. And in order to protect Israel, he has to form a proper army that will know how to fight the enemies of Israel. And he takes his colonels and generals and he tells them, Vayomer lelamed bnei Yehuda keshet. We need to teach the sons of Judah the art of bow and arrow, and that's what we do at Caliber 3. Now, Caliber 3, and this is connected to this day, today, Yom HaZikaron, is named after a soldier, a captain in the Israeli army named Captain Chagai Lev. This captain died 15 and a half years ago. We talked about Gaza. So he died in Gaza leading his soldiers in combat. He was a commander in a special unit in the Israeli army. And we named Caliber 3 after him. And we formed a special program that the intention of this program is to show people from all over the world, Jews and non-Jews, what Israel has become into. Now I'll tell you a story about how this program formed, and then I'll tell you about Chagai, and we'll see where we go from there. So a few years ago, let's say exactly 9 years ago, you know, in Israel we have the Remembrance Day for the Holocaust, the Remembrance Day for the soldiers that died for the state of Israel, and immediately afterwards, the Independence Day. By the way, all this time of the year, Passover, the redemption from Egypt, from slavery, and then 2,000 years of exile, and then the Holocaust, and then getting a state and fighting for it. This is, in my eyes, a beautiful time, and this represents the Jewish life. And I remember about 9 years ago, I was walking in the Remembrance Day for the Holocaust in Caliber 3, and I was thinking to myself, and I was saying, listen, I was speaking to myself, this is a miracle. Why is it a miracle? You know, Caliber 3, I invite everybody here to come and visit. It's an academy that is set out of shooting ranges and facilities for hand-to-hand combat and facilities for urban combat, close-quarter combat, driving combat, tactical combat, anything that can make you a better soldier. And all the forces come over there to train, including forces from all over the world, including police forces, army forces from America, from Africa, from I don't know where. But the most, I would say, miracle is German police coming over there to train. Wow. We, the Israelis, train the Germans how to protect themselves from terrorism. And I was thinking to myself, let's say, now let's go back to 1942. Let's say I come to Auschwitz. Me, like me, a proud Jewish soldier, come to Auschwitz and meet a Jew sitting over there in 1942 after a day of work and telling him, listen, My name is Sharon Gad. I'm a colonel in the Israeli army. And I want to tell you that one day, you know, the Jewish people will have a state and an army and security forces that will protect any Jew in Israel and all over the world. And this state will have great economy and will be an empire in agriculture and science and medicine and technology. And even, not only that this nation will have an army, this army will be considered one day one of the strongest armies in the world. Remember, I'm talking to that Jew in 1942. That Jew is looking at me, and what do you think he's thinking?
No,
this guy's crazy.
Yeah.
Who is he? This is a dream.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even dare to dream that. And I said, this isn't a dream. This is a dream come true. And I want to open Caliber 3 to the public. I want the public to come in, Jews and friends of Israel, non-Jews from all over the world, and to understand that this dream came true. I went to the Israeli government. I told them what I told you. Good idea, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? Good idea. And I'm sitting in front of that, the guy over there. I'm telling him the idea. I want to open it to the public. He says, but how will you do it? There's special forces, police, government security. I told him, don't worry. They will be here. The public will. He said, listen, no way. I told him, listen, mister, I respect you, but I'm a colonel in the Israeli army, and I was taught to one. And he said, okay, we're the Israeli government, and we're regulating you, and we're saying no. I said, okay, listen, mister, if you're saying no and I'm saying yes, what does that mean? We're in war, and I'm going to win. And this gentleman over here, you were in Caliber 3, so that means I won, right? And then the Israeli government started to send people, and now we're working. You know, every politician that comes from America, every Hollywood star that comes from America, the Israeli government today sends them to Caliber 3.
Whoa.
And we named the program after Captain Chagai Lev, who was my brother-in-law. Like I told you, was killed 15 and a half years ago. And I want to tell you the life story. I won't go into every detail in his life, but I want to tell you the last part of his life, the last part of his story life. But before that, I want to give you something that you will have in your hands, because I want to talk about it, and there's a picture over there and a poem that I want you guys to see. So we'll hand it out.
Yeah. I'll pass it around.
Okay, I'll make it a little bit short because I understand people have to go, so I'll tell you a little bit about Captain Chagai Lev. First of all, you see the captain standing somewhere. Does anybody recognize the place he's standing?
Warsaw.
This is the entrance to hell. This is the entrance to Auschwitz. Now, you know we in the Israeli army, we have a program called Witnesses in Uniform. In this program, what do? We take our best officers and we send them to the death camps in Poland. Why do we do that? By the way, the Israeli army is very busy, believe me. We don't have time to send people here and there. But we understand that this is important. And this is important for two main reasons. The first reason is that we want these people, these young commanders, to understand why they are leading their soldiers into combat, and like what the rabbi said before, why they are willing to take the bullet for every Jew in the world. But that's not the main reason. We want them, the second reason and the main reason that we send them over there is because we want them to understand one important thing. What happens to a nation and to a military that has huge power but no morals. And we want them to fight differently in the battlefield. We want them to be the strongest army in the world, but the most moral army in the world. And that I address you guys that you're here. Speak out loud and say, Colonel God told you that the IDF is the most moral army in the world. Say it proud because that's the truth. And Captain Chagai Lev, he, as I told you, was a commander in a special unit in the Israeli army. And he was sent to a delegation like that. And the delegations take place from Sunday to Friday. So we did the delegation, he landed, he was married, no kids. He came for Shabbat to his home. And he said hello, he spent Shabbat with his wife. And then on Motzei Shabbat he was called immediately to come back to the unit and to lead an operation in Gaza. He went into Gaza. They were securing some special mission that was going on over there. And suddenly, it was on Tuesday night, between Tuesday night and Monday morning, and suddenly they hear voices in the streets. And I'll explain how it works when you're in enemy grounds. You take over a house and you have snipers in the windows that protect the force, and the force does what it has to do. And two of the snipers see in the street suspicious people. Remember, we're not in Tel Aviv, we're not in San Diego, we're in enemy grounds. And between the suspicious people, there are also children. You know what any other army would do in such a situation? Shoot without questions. But not in the Israeli army. And the snipers called Captain Chagai. This was an ambush, of course. The Palestinians, Hamas, they used the children for decoy. They waited for the captain to come. They shot him 2 bullets. One in the helmet, one over here. He died almost immediately. But you know, we're the people of Israel, we're Jewish. And like I said, we suffered in Egypt. We suffered for 2,000 years. We've been through the Holocaust. And for 70 years, we've had the best state in the world, but we're in constant war. But what's important about us is that tradition goes on, and that's exactly what we did with Captain Chagai. And the story I'm telling you here is the story that millions of people have heard in Caliber 3 when they come, and they take it and they spread it out all over the world. Now, a year after he died, his little sister went on a delegation like that, and she looked for the same place he was standing on that railway in the entrance to hell. By the way, he was standing there and reading out to his delegation the chapter Kafdalet 24 of the Book of Palms, of Sefer Tehillim. And she looked for the same place, and she wrote a poem for her delegation that I would ask you to read it out loud.
I don't have grandparents who survived Auschwitz to tell me stories. I don't have aunts and uncles who rose in flame to heaven. I have a brother who was in Auschwitz. But my brother did not stand here in ragged clothes and fear in his eyes. My brother stood here in uniform, with a purple beret on his head, and bars of a captain on his shoulder. My brother did not ask, what will happen today? Will we live or die? My brother wanted to provide an answer for all of us, for them and us. But my brother, like the 1.5 million people who stood in this cursed place, is not with us today. He is looking down on us, together with 6 million other pairs of eyes. He is above us in heaven. But my brother is not buried in a collective grave with thousands of people. He was not burned or dumped into a grave. My brother was buried with a flag draped over his coffin, and shots of horror, not fear, rang out
Honor.
Honor, not fear, rang out over his grave. My brother is buried in Herzl. My brother is buried with his brothers, soldiers of the state of Israel.
So that's the story of Haggai. That's the story of Israel. And what can I say? I have to make it short. But I want to say thank you.
Thank you.